Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. I want to introduce you again to a very impressive young lady. Kathleen Black is her name, and she has just released her second book. It's called Relentless to Rise, Powering Your Life from the Inside Out. And she talks about it and says that it's about shared stories that become a part of our collective stories. I know you will move forward to take action and build the life you deserve, stepping into your power, she says, getting into clarity and fierce alignment. She is sharing her journey emotionally fit at 40. What an inspirationally, it sounds fantastic. Kathleen Black, welcome to our show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. So what motivated you to write your second book?
Well, I think, my first book was all about helping people who are powered up to expand, right? To get help, to leverage, to kind of expand their business. And I think this book, I say my first book, but it's not, it's the second book. This one is about powering up the person, right? Like going through life and allowing it to make us stronger, more certain, more confident, more resolved so that we're ready to build whatever it is we're meant to build, and follow the path that kind of presents it to us, the positive growth path that presents itself. So this one is much more a memoir. It's much more my story. So it was a little bit harder to write, but I felt it was time. Like I'm a big believer in, giving away your stories and not having secrets and learning from them and growing from them. So this book certainly challenged me in that arena.
Fantastic. So the first one was called what?
The first one's called the top 1% life, moving from chaos to calm in your business and life.
And that was primarily for recommendations on how to run a real estate business or any business?
Any business, any service or sales-based business. Obviously, I have a huge amount of experience in helping, realtors expand into teams, but we work with mortgage teams and insurance teams, and really anyone in sales and service would benefit from the mindset, right? How to move from a solopreneur or solo producer into a team leader or like fierce CEO mentality.
And so you run your own consulting company, Kathleen Black Consulting.
Yep.
What does that company do?
That company, well, it does three things. So it does many things. Like we do speaking, obviously, and keynotes and things like that, which we'll do with this book, which is really fun. We run Ultimate Team Summit, which is the biggest team-specific summit in the real estate industry in North America. But primarily, we run coaching and consulting programs, either for the individual who, again, wants to get, clear and confident in life, personal or business, either just really get into alignment, or the person who's saying, hey, I just, need to help hire an admin or a little bit of help, or third for the mega teams, which is our industry icon. And that's our one-stop shop, for coaching for whole teams. Their whole team gets coaching access. So that's kind of cool.
So you wrote one book about business and how to be successful in business, primarily real estate, but applicable to lots of other businesses where you've got to put a team together. You run a consulting business that advises people on teams and provides coaching and does keynotes. And now you've written this second book about your own personal journey. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Fascinating. And in the middle of it, you trekked across northern Spain.
I did. Yes, I did the 800 Camino de Santiago, which we talked about another time on this show, which was great. And I shared some pictures. So yeah, it's been quite the year. That's for sure.
And you're now recently engaged.
I am, yes. So a lot of things have clicked in between 2020 and 2021. There's been a lot of expansion, that's for sure. Yeah.
You're living the life, living the dream.
I guess the entrepreneur's scale and leverage dream, but no, I am for sure. Yeah. I think
it's a wonderful story, and we're going to take a break for some messages and come back more with Kathleen Black and ask her about some of her lessons and about some of her journey and what's contained in the book. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour, Saga 960. We're chatting tonight with Kathleen Black, who's recently released her second book, and it's about your personal journey, I understand, Kathleen. Remind us the title and tell us where we can get it.
The title is Relentless to Rise, Powering Yourself from the Inside Out. And right now we've released the ebook. So it's available on Kindle, on Amazon internationally, and then we'll be releasing the print book in the next 4 to 6 weeks.
Excellent. Tell us a little bit about what's contained in the book.
Well, there's a lot contained in the book, because I think I always joke, like a lot of people, it's like 9 lives, right? 7 lives. So it's like writing a book like this is an interesting experience, because you have to go back to, people you no longer are, right? And I think it can be a very cathartic thing to do, but it can also be a really painful thing to do. And I think, going back and remembering versions of myself that were not as powerful, were not as confident, felt really victimized by the world. And I think people who read it now, it's hard to even imagine me that way. Like, it was hard to write and remember what it felt like to feel, very much kind of like pushed down by the world again and again and again, because now I feel like all of that experience has made me look at the world a little bit differently. But, I talk about things a lot of entrepreneurs do, like getting in trouble a lot at school and kind of learning to bend reality in my favor, and kind of learning to be obstinate in the way of, you can't upset me if I choose not to be upset, right? Like, you can make me be a student in the storage room and put a little desk in there, but if I choose not to be upset with it, I've kind of got this edge. So I think at a really young age, I got in enough trouble to kind of learn that what I believed would really shape my world. And it was like my little secret, right? So
You don't seem like the person that would have gotten into a lot of trouble at school.
well, I think I didn't get in trouble for reasons like being mean to people or things like that. I got in trouble because I think I was really curious, and I'm still really curious. And I could see kind of outliers. Like, if people were saying something and they didn't go together, I'd have questions like, this contradicts and this doesn't seem to match. And, I think I was bored. I was always an honor student. Like, I did extremely well in school. And part of the story I talk about in the book was, in high school, in some years, I missed more than half of my classes, and I was still an honor student, right? So I say, as an entrepreneur, they should have.
What were you doing?
What was I do? No, well, it wasn't anything fun, unfortunately. I left home quite young, and I got kicked out a lot. So I kind of, looking back, reading this book, I was like, the theme is, kicked out of home, kind of my old business, the doors were locked on me. Like, it was just a lot of that pattern and having to figure things out. So I was ending up to stay with, friends or boyfriend at the time. And so I'd miss a lot of school just with the stress of it. And also figuring out, literally, like, where am I going to sleep if I was at a time where I was having a lot of trouble at home. So that part was a bit different than the younger elementary school years.
And so the lesson is something about even when you're in the storage closet,
Yep.
At a desk, you can feel happy about it and you overcome the problem.
Well, yeah, I think it's realizing that people don't have power over us unless we choose to be impacted in the way that they what do you call it? They would like us to be, right? Like, if I choose that I like being in the storage closet and it's calm and it's peaceful and it's a break, then I like it. If I choose that, hey, I'm an honor student and maybe it's good for me to be with my classmates, and maybe I shouldn't be in this little storage closet as a kid in a desk, then all of a sudden magically I'm put back in the class, right? Like, I just started to realize how powerful our beliefs are, and that they shape what we say to people, and that shapes our outcomes in life. And I think I really wanted to be an advocate for myself even back then. So it was kind of like my playground, right, to figure it out. And I did get put back in class, which was great. But yeah, I think it's exactly that. People can only upset us unless it's like something extreme. I always say, I'm not talking about, being tortured or things like this, but people can only upset us if we choose to be upset, right?
Well, even torture, as you probably know, Viktor Frankl wrote a book, In Search of Meaning, that was in a concentration camp, and he changed his attitude and survived when a lot of people couldn't change their attitude for very justifiable reasons and had big problems with it. So even in a tortuous situation, you control. You must be familiar with the Marshmallow Test.
Very. And I'm also familiar with Viktor Frankl. I actually quote him in the book a couple of times. I've read Man's Search for Meaning is fantastic. Yeah, you're very right there. It's a good point.
I thought the Marshmallow Test was wonderful, and one of the examples I like the best is the guy that controlled his ability or his desire to eat the marshmallows by drawing an imaginary wall around him. And as soon as he built that imaginary wall, he couldn't go and eat the marshmallows, and so it was just in the mind he was controlling.
Oh, I know the marshmallow study, like for obviously with leadership, right? And the idea of delayed gratification, but I didn't know that story about the wall. That's fantastic.
Yeah. So what they did is the marshmallow test, as you undoubtedly know, and you've probably spoken about this,
Yeah.
they took a bunch of school children and told them that if they waited 15 minutes to eat the marshmallow, they get 2 marshmallows, and so they had a 100% return in 15 minutes, which we wait decades to get 100% return on our money. And so that's a pretty good return. And the vast majority of people couldn't. But the people that had the willpower to do it, actually they tracked later on in life and ended up being far more successful in school and far more successful in business. And what it suggested is that willpower ends up being one of, if not one of the most important personality traits. But what I was talking about is how people actually did it. And one person sang, one person danced around, another person drew this imaginary wall. And so, it's not just willpower, it's how you actually execute and exercise your willpower that's important.
Well, yeah, because I think, it's like when we talk about stress or anxiety, all of these things, it's like literally our body is responding to either what's going on or what we're thinking about. And I think it's really powerful to know that, because we can be thinking about something having a negative outcome. Even if the negative outcome never happens, our body experiences it like it does. So the story in our head is really everything. And I would say, sure, willpower, but I think it's also like, to be a leader, you have to be a visionary. Like, I can't lead without knowing where I want to go in the future, right? I can manage, but I can't lead without that vision. And I think, I'd like to believe that when it's applied to adults later on in life, like they also have that long game view, right? Like I can see myself and what it would look like in 2 minutes when I don't take the marshmallow, or in 2 years, right? When I spend those extra couple of hours to try to build something that's really important to me. And I don't know, I think it's really exciting to have both willpower and the vision is a pretty great combination.
Okay, so I loved your story about controlling your mind and having a positive attitude when you were writing in a desk in a storage closet for willpower. Do you have a comparable story for vision?
For vision, yeah, I think that it's, and I won't give away all. There's a lot of stories in the book, but I think both when I left my prior coaching company, which was really, really difficult. Like I've shared with people, I basically was locked out. I had to kind of put I had to put the collateral of my home on the line to kind of stand up for myself. And I think I kept telling myself, by December 1st, 2015, you'll be paid fairly for your shares in the company. You'll have half the clients come with you, and you'll own the content, because I substantially either created it or reworked all of it. And sure enough, and every time I was nervous, every time something was happening, I would just say that again and again and again. And I could see it and I believed in it. And that gave me peace. Like instead of being stressed, I said, hey, December 1st is going to happen. And sure enough, we were in the big towers at Bay and Bloor, like Suits area, right? Paying $900 for a lawyer like 5 years ago or 6 years ago. And that's exactly what ended up happening. And it was a complete turn of fate, right? But every single time, like, no, like I don't have to do anything else. I just have to show up and be honest and work towards this. And sure enough, it happened. And, there were times where I left a relationship that was really complicated, and the same thing. I'm going to be with the ideal partner for me, who's supportive and strong, deeply connected, and ideal for myself and their children, if they have any. And it just allowed me to see the future. And instead of responding to what was going on around me, have faith that I was going towards something that was more important for me, and that I needed to do my work in this life, which I believe in.
The way that you said those two visions, the one that was a business one and the other one that was a personal one, almost sounded like it's an affirmation you've repeated on numerous occasions. Is that one of these sort of daily affirmations that you were saying to yourself?
Yeah, like I'm a big like nerd about certain aspects of brain science. And I do believe that our brains are smart. And if we, they're better servants than masters, sure. But they know when we're lying, right? Like if I say to myself, I'm a billionaire, my brain just shuts, right? It's like, what? But if I say to myself, how am I so easily becoming a billionaire? Or how am I so easily attracting more business? Or how am I so easily moving into the future? It's like, oh, because I know by December 1st or sooner, I'll have X, Y, Z. So I think it's kind of a mix. Like I call it a being statement or a being goal. So it's like I'm stepping into the goal because I'm being that person, and therefore I'm going to attract those things and it'll naturally come to pass. So it's kind of a mix. But yeah, some days I had to say it honestly, probably 100 times a day, just to keep myself grounded when things are really stressful, for sure. But it is grounding.
So you've got to be the person you want to be before you're actually that person.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Right. Like I can't, and I had this recently with something with our team because we've been doing a lot of recruitment and hiring. And, I had somebody that, anyways, here nor there, but they were being kind of confrontational. It wasn't a coach or anything, but being kind of confrontational in a discussion. And I kind of said, you know what, like you can have a business conversation where you're not that happy, or maybe you realize it's not the right fit with the company, but how you show up is who you are, right? Like how you communicate and how you deal with things is just, it's so vital. Like I look at, it doesn't matter what other people are doing. What I do is up to me. Like there's no excuses for, anybody else's interaction. So yeah, for sure.
How you show up is who you are.
Yeah, always. Yeah.
Would you mind repeating those two affirmations for us? The one that was about business and your satisfaction of the resolution of the issue, and your personal one.
Sure. So the business one is by December 1st, 2015 or sooner, I will be paid sharely for my shares in the company. Half the clients will come with me, and I will have full ownership and rights to all of the content that I created or had influence over. And that is exactly what came to pass. The personal one was a little bit longer than what I'm saying now, but there was another one that I had, that I'm attracting the ideal people to give me constructive criticism, feedback, and be mentors and support so I can be molded into the leader and the person I'm meant to be. That was one that I did for a couple of years to attract right mentors. And then the relationship one was, I'm attracting the ideal partner for me that's deeply connected, honest, and supportive, and will be ideal to be supportive in the lives of my children and in theirs if they have any. So yeah, I said them many, many times.
Beautiful. Did you have a bad relationship that caused you to want to have this positive affirmation for a new relationship?
Yeah, I had a difficult relationship. And I think, I came out of a separation, and I had a great relationship in some ways, but in some ways I didn't like the dynamic in my house and some influences, and I had to make some choices, and, lovely person, just not the right person for me. And honestly, if I hadn't have made those changes that I knew in my heart I had to make, I would never have the business I have now. I would never help as many people as I have now. Like the energy it took up to try to be in that relationship took so much energy from me before I even could get to business or get to my life's work. So it really needed to happen. And I needed to see that the right person would make it easier, not harder.
That's interesting that in a bad relationship took so much energy that it took you away from not only your personal relationships in life, but your business opportunities.
Well, you only, like, I always say it in coaching, I'm like, think of it this way. And it's a weird metaphor, but it's easy. So I like it. It's like you have 100 pennies a day. That's it. Those pennies are ergs, right? So you can say they're 1,000 each penny. You can say they're one, whatever you want. You have 100. If you're spending like 45 of your pennies trying to deal with frustrations at home, and then you've got kids, and then you've got running around, like how much is left over to do the most important work or the most important things you want to do in your life? And most people are burning their pennies on things that aren't that important to them, right? So, to me, I couldn't afford to do that. Like, I think I have a purpose here, and I need to save my pennies or my ergs to do what I'm meant to do.
So just out of interest, did you have to go through a whole bunch of frogs before you met the prince?
You know what? It's funny. Like I got really, really clear. So I was shocking. I was super picky about who I would meet or even entertain. And being in the coaching industry, I had a hard rule. Like as soon as I opened my company, I would not mix. Like I said, it's not even crossing the line. There's no line. Like business is business. Like there's no line to cross over it into personal. I wouldn't even entertain that. So no, like I dated a couple really nice, good people, just not the right match. I didn't date a lot of people because the first 2 years opening this business, I made a commitment not to date for 2 years. I said the kids in the business, and I wanted to do the 2 years equating to 10 years of growth by going all in. And I did till I got exhausted. I was like, I don't want to live this way anymore. And then even with Nick, my fiance is in the real estate industry. And, I definitely tried to shut it down to the point where he's like, no, I don't want coaching. Like I only interested in personal. And I canceled our first date and ignored him for a long time, just because I didn't want to take the risk, right? Like I think being a woman in the business I am, I've heard a lot of unfair gossip and a lot of unfair how they got where they are. And I wasn't interested. I was like, yeah, no, I'm going to do it my way, right? Keep it, not clean because they were clean too. Just keep it away from anyone's ability to talk something about it, I guess.
So the positive affirmation works, and you recommend people, use that on a daily, if not more than once a day basis?
Well, for the big things, like I think when people get in really hard situations, it's like I always say you either move into pain or you move out of it, right? And the only way to move out of it is by knowing where you want to go in the future. Like that's where it has to start. Like if I have no power in the present, what am I going to do? And hope in the future gives me power in the present. So if I'm in something really tough, like to me, my biggest secret weapon is like I can be in what other people think is like the worst scenario possible. And in my head, I can see where I'm going and I act only based on where I'm going. And that's like, if you can do that and be disciplined to it, people don't get, it's like it morphs you into the future because you're not living in the mess of it. And if you stay disciplined, eventually you show up. Even if you're halfway out, it's a pretty happy thing to see, right?
I had a really negative thing that happened to me at one point in time. I set a new objective. I wrote it down on a piece of cardboard. I put it on my wall. I read it every morning. I read it every evening. And a year and a half later it came true. And so I firmly believe that you're right in that regard. How did you learn about this positive affirmation?
Well, a
Strategy?
few ways. Yeah, I think, again, like coming from some difficulty being younger, I don't think it's an accident I got into psychology or I started to study all the different like certifications I have now. Like I wanted to help clients, but the truth is I was also always helping myself, right? The more I can help myself, I can help them. And, even before I got into real estate, I'd started to read about what they call parallel positioning. And parallel positioning is something where you lock your eyes either up to the left, up to the right, depending. Like some people, because that's either visual recall or it's visual reconstruct, right? And I'm going somewhere with this. So if you can go into visual reconstruct with your eye pattern, you can actually lock in like a memory and a place and a smell. So my place was always Chapters, now Indigo, whatever, because you smell the coffee. And the minute I go into a Chapters and I open a book, no matter how bad my problem is, I'll read a couple things and all of a sudden I'll relax. Like, that's it. That's how I can approach it. So my parallel positioning was always lock up to the right and I go to Chapters and I could smell the coffee and I could like relax. I could envision having the book. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, there's so many solutions. There's one problem. There's like hundreds of solutions. So I've always just looked for these little brain hacks, I think, like to get through things in life. So I don't know when I first learned about it. Like I'm trained in NLP and a whole bunch of different things. And I've had different mentors in the past. So I think it's a mix of things, to be honest.
Tell us what NLP is.
Oh, NLP is neuro-linguistic programming. So I'm a master practitioner and coach, and I really love NLP because NLP is the study of excellence. So it's basically saying, we can model how the top leaders, the top communicators, the top strategists, how they worked, how they thought, how they had habits in life. We can model it, and if it worked for them, we can take it on. And even if we're not as good as them, we'll be better than we are now. So it really is the study of excellence, and I think that's why I love mentorship so much, because we're all mirrors, right? So as a coach, it's like I can mirror to somebody how capable they are, talented, or like their gifts, their beauty in life. And all of a sudden they'll start to see it because it's like they'll be able to have that mirrored back so they can step into it. So to me, it's like, mentorship's a really important privilege. And NLP it's basically that. It's saying if I have excellence around me, I can mirror it and I can step into it and I can learn how to do it, which is pretty refreshing, right?
Give us a sense of how NLP works. I can understand the idea of a mentor, but how does neuro-linguistic programming work?
Yeah, it's the study, it's a brain science. So it's studying how our brains process, how we lock in patterns, how we lock in beliefs. There's something called meta programs, which is a little bit deeper. It looks into patterns, so how people make decisions. So I can talk to people and ask them kind of basic questions and learn a lot about how they're seeing life. What do they believe in? What patterns do they use to make decisions? And once I do that, NLP allows us to basically just slowly disrupt certain beliefs that might not be constructive for the person and make room for new things. So I know that sounds really abstract, but for example, in a job interview, I might ask somebody, instead of asking them, if you have a difficult project that you need to manage or you need to set up, how do you do it? Instead, I might say, when's the last time you bought a car? What car did you buy? Why? What was the process? I remember buying my last car and this is what I did, right? And they'll tell me all about it, either passionate, they might be confused why I'm so excited, it doesn't matter, but they'll tell me about it. And I learned so much about that person, right? And their personality. So with my clients, I've used NLP immensely. Like it's through everything we do with coaching, that and DISC personality profiling.
Sorry, what's this DISC?
DISC personality profiling.
What is DISC personality profiling?
This personality profiling, it's based on the work of Marsden, and it's based on the original personality profiling that they start, even way back, they kind of had 4 quadrants always. So way back, they had like gross ones like bile and anyways to categorize, but it's looking at the 4 archetypes of personality and understanding that people usually have 1 or 2 main ones and then 2 that they don't use quite as often. And it allows us to adapt, how we speak to those people, how they process. Like, for example, some people process to make a decision, their threshold for data or details is way up there, right? So they need a ton of details, whereas other people are visual. As soon as they can see it, they can kind of move into it. And that's learning. I'm mixing learning styles. But anyway, DISC is the 4, like, what do you call it? The driver, the inspirational, the steady, consistent, and then the calculating, the detail oriented. And we know in business, like, which archetypes usually kind of thrive. But the more you know about yourself, the more you can adapt to others, right? Like, the more I know my personality, the more I know my strengths and weaknesses, and I can be at peace. And now I don't compete with people. I just pair with other people's genius. So personality is another tool to really understand ourselves and others.
Did you do a personality test on your fiance?
Yeah, of course. No, he coaches with us, but I knew his personality. Like, I'm a trainer's trainer in DISC. So usually, unless someone really tries to trip me up, I can kind of get a somewhat sense, right?
We're chatting tonight with Kathleen Black about her new book. We're going to take a break and come back, and maybe we'll ask her to read something from it. Just stay with us for a minute.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour, Saga 960. We're chatting with trainer, consultant, coach, mentor, author, Kathleen Black. And she's recently written a second book called Relentless to Rise, Powering Your Life from the Inside Out. Shared stories become a part of our collective stories. And she says that she moves forward and takes actions to build the life that she and you deserve by stepping into your power, getting into clarity and fierce alignment. She shares her journey to emotionally fit at 40. Why were you not emotionally fit before?
Actually, somebody else, a few readers gave me that feedback. They love that. And so they sent it to me, and I thought that I kind of get it. No, I think I was emotionally fit leading up to 40, but I think the journey, most of it was up until 40. And I think that's true. It took me probably a while to get fully emotionally fit. It's a process, right?
Can you read something from the book for us?
Yeah, and I was just scrolling trying to pick. So I'll read from chapter 25, which is entitled Our Stories. And ironically, because it has a quote at the top by Viktor Frankl. And the quote is, "Love is the ultimate and highest goal." As mothers and parents, we hand forward a baton. The baton is passed further and further along in this relay race that is life. Perhaps it's not a sprint. Maybe it's more of an ultimate adventure, but a baton is passed all the same. If we are aware, then we have a choice about whether to pass the legacies of the past, both of the strength, success, courage, and grace, and or of the harmful lies of our weakness, lack of value, worthiness, or despair, to pass those forward to the next generation. Yes, we have a choice as to the legacies that we pass. Those we can clean away to the core, leaving only what is good as we wipe away the tarnish away from antique family silver tea set. One daughter's legacy may be polishing the tea set regularly to honor tradition, and the next daughter may polish the tea set only to wrap it in plastic wrap for preservation and less time polishing. The legacy is cleaned when passed, but the plight of the adventure baton, now in hand, is not the same. And I don't know if I can stop there if you want me to keep going.
Oh, it's beautiful. So the baton, the idea of the baton being that you're carrying a legacy for what? Your several generations of your family?
Yeah, for sure. And I think we all do, right? Like the stories that we read, the mentors we have, the parents we have, are like, we know beliefs and trauma are passed down, even scientifically now proven, passed down, right? And our genetics or in our bodies and our muscles can hold energy and memories. And, there's so many different multisensory ways to kind of clean, right? And get back to our core of truth. And I think, I'm a big believer that this generation is kind of has an amazing opportunity to clear the weight of a lot of what used to maybe be secrets or things we wouldn't say or shame that happens in a family. And I'm a big believer that I'm the person who shows up. People gravitate to me because they want to be free of that. just like I wanted to give away my stories, right? I think lots of people are saying, hey, like it's not healthy to have things that we don't talk about or to not become conscious, because when we're not conscious, we confuse our wounds for other people and we push the outcomes of those on other people. And in some parts of the book, it's almost like, you know, if I have a wound or I feel I'm not good enough or I'm stressed or I had some traumatic experience, I'm naturally going to put that on somebody else without even realizing it. It's like if they put it down, I'm scared that it's going to come back on me. But the reality is it frees both of us, right? But I think that there's definitely different generational norms and beliefs and culture about what we talk about and what's okay and what's not. And I truly believe there's a reason people are so empowered and moving to be more evolved and conscious, because it's time to let a lot of that stuff go. And I don't think that's unique to me. I think a lot of people experience that.
So how do you get rid of historic family trauma?
Well, I think, you know, I mean, there's two answers I could tell you, you know, in 6 figures plus of personal development. But I mean, I think there are other answers to that. You know, I think looking at things as like, I think it's something to break through, right? Like if we look at trauma and we actually go, okay, like what's the truth here and what's the lesson here? And am I actually willing to face the fact that, you know, maybe it's not true, or maybe the reason things have power over me is because I'm scared they're true, right? Like when you come from difficult households, which I certainly did, you know, I think there's a big piece of me that was scared that maybe I was screwed up. Maybe I deserved to be kicked out. Maybe, you know, all these things that happened to me was because I wasn't right or strong or smart. And none of that was true, but it took a heck of a big journey to figure that out. And I think if we have mentors who talk about this, we can see it sooner, because then we can see the mirror and be like, oh, I felt that way. I was scared to talk about that. But you know what? That's not really true. That's some old stuff playing out, and I'm strong enough to let it stop at me.
But it almost sounds like you're not passing the baton on to your children, that for some reason you ruptured the baton that had been passed from prior generations to you, and then you refused to take it.
I took it and I cleaned it is what I'd like to say. I took it and I cleaned it. And ironically, you know, I do have a silver tea set, right? That families like to pass on. And I remember my mom, because of her mom and her mother's mother, all that fun stuff, being like, you're not polishing like the tea set's looking tarnished. And I was kind of like, oh my goodness, like what's it really about? So I was that person who kind of cleaned it and saran wrapped it. And she never said anything. I wondered if she noticed it, but I'm like, now it's not going to tarnish. But I think the opportunity is to pass a different baton on, a baton that's true at the core of things, and to really wipe away the tarnish. That's not like in my book, I talk about the lake at the end of the Camino de Santiago on, I'm going to forget the name of the mountain right now, but it's just before you come into the town. It's the first place you can see the cathedral. So it's really Mont Gonzo. That's what it is. So it's really powerful because the pilgrims used to cleanse there, and they felt they were really cleansing away everything of the journey, and that they were forgiven and they were back, you know, whole, complete as they naturally are. Right. And that lake went putrid. And I always say, like, you know, when I was writing my book, it's like some people might read this and think when I talk about cleansing in this lake that, you know, it's going putrid because there's all these dark things in it. It's like, no, that's the job of cleansing, right? Like it's supposed to take in, it's supposed to stay there, and I can just leave it there. And that's a beautiful thing, just to take all these things and be able to just put it down, you know?
So your book is Relentless to Rise, Powering Your Life from the Inside Out. So explain from the inside out.
Yeah, you know, it's really easy to get stuck in the trap of kind of looking to life to reaffirm us, right? Are we selling enough? Are we making enough money? Are we a good parent? You know, what's going on? And I don't think you ever win externally. You know, internally, we can get into abundance. We can know who we are. We can give ourselves permission to say, this is how I want to parent. This is how I want to lead a company. This is how I want to influence an industry with how I do sales training, right? We can choose inside to go to our intuition and to go and actually trust ourselves. And I think that's the basis of all moving from ego to consciousness to collectiveness is really—
Hold it. Going from what?
From ego to conscious to collective.
From ego to conscious to collective.
Yeah, because once I go into consciousness, I'm no longer competitive, right? I'm no longer competing. Like I can't be, you know, I'm anyone, like, you know, I can't, I'm trying to think of another, like I talked to Virginia Mundine this morning, right? She does amazing thing with the Buzz conference. I can't win at being Virginia. Why would I ever want to? But I can marvel at the genius that's Virginia, because I can see that, because I can allow myself to see the genius in me. And I think the future of the world is collective teams, right? People who don't need that big ego because they're conscious of why they might play out certain patterns in their life, right? Like insecurity or competitiveness or scarcity. And it has huge impacts on the industry. Like with, I work in real estate a lot, and I think our mentality is everything for how we show up in the world, right? With our family, our business, our community, all of it.
How we show up in life. You keep on talking about how we show up. What do you mean by how we show up?
Well, so I think the core of Inside Out is self-governance. And I can't govern myself if I don't know myself, if I don't trust myself, if I don't trust myself to lead, even in deep, difficult waters. Like when I started the Camino, I went just by fluke. I was walking around Paris because I started there, and I went into a cathedral and I saw Joan of Arc, right? And I was like, okay, like that's my, inspiration that this journey will go well. And I think I thought that because she was so renowned, like or not, doesn't matter, but she was renowned to be so discipline to her inner voice, her inner source, her connection, her belief in doing good work for the right reasons. And that was so inspiring to me, because I think everything about Inside Out is getting back in tune with ourselves. Like I believe I'm connected to source through myself. Like I need to trust and connect and be at peace and aligned and proper frequency with myself first before anything else.
So many people think that other people are going to make them happy, and you are of the belief that you make yourself happy.
Yeah, 100%. And if there are people in your space who are not making you happy, or their frequency isn't good for you, then there's nothing wrong with honoring them and moving away, right? Change can be a beautiful thing. Like that's totally okay. But I think self-governance is at the basics of all leadership. Like, don't teach me how to manage other people, teach me how to lead myself, and I'll make much more of an influence, I believe, in my family and community.
What do you mean by self-governance?
So like my ability to hold myself to my own word. Like if I have to rely on, getting a ticket for how I drive, or I have to rely on, my board for like my minimum way of acting, that's not going to give me a lot of personal power. If I say, the way I think, the way I talk, the way I act, all has to be in congruence, because then I'm powerful. I'm not leaking energy and I can walk through a storm. That makes for a supercharged leader. Like that's a powerful person, because they know why they're doing it. They know why it's important, and they'll be able to walk through adversity, right? Which is really, really key.
Okay, so using my words, not yours, I apologize for this, but number one was willpower. Number two was vision. Number three is self-governance.
Mm-hmm.
Are there others?
In the book?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think there's power from the past, and the big theme, because I don't know if you know, but they're doing, M. Douglas Silverstein is a director in California, and he's worked with huge, like Paul McCartney, Madonna, like Beyonce, huge people. And he's doing a documentary. He's already been filming and he's editing now. So it's kind of fun. But he kept saying, he's like, Kathleen, what you say all the time is like, my experiences do not define me, right? There are certain things that have happened to me in my life, but they're not who I am. My body went through those things, but they're not my soul. They're not my core. And I think at the end of the day, a lot of the people I work with, they believe things that happen to them kind of make them less than. It's just something that happened. It's not your being, right? It's just an experience.
So what do you call that? Getting over the past?
Well, I think it's more than, maybe it's getting over the past. I think it's, we are not our past. We're self-created beings. If we're leaders, we're always self-created, right?
So that's different than self-governance. That's
into the future. Self-governance is in the present, like management. Vision is in the future. Prosperity comes from prophecy, right? Yeah.
Prosperity comes from prophecy. What do you mean by that?
You have to see it and envision it and trust it when no one else can see it, to create your prosperity and energy and health and mindset and money, whatever your prosperity is in time. How many people are stuck in because they're in scarcity, because deep inside of them, they're scared if they change something, they're going to lose what they have now. So they're not willing to sacrifice the marshmallow, right, Brian? Because they're too scared that in 2 weeks they might have no marshmallow, right? But if you have the prophecy, if you can see it and believe it, you're going to make changes and you're going to have a whole new world. And the people who step into that, they might fall a couple times, but they live very different realities.
Scarcity mindset. Is that what you said?
Yeah. Like scare. Yeah. If at the root of you, you're in fear. Yeah.
What is a scarcity mindset? Someone that's always fearful of change?
Well, it's where I'm being governed by fear, right? So I always say, like, fear can be very logical, right? I'm scared of something. I can write essay after essay on why my fear is logical and why I should act based on the fear. But end of the day, I can't escape the outcome of acting on fear, right? Like, again, prophecy creates prosperity. If I act based on fear today, I would say, well, what's your vision of how the outcome of that's going to look in a year or in 2 years? And it blasts right through it. So scarcity is competitiveness. It's external, it's fear, it's loss, it's thinking we're in a dog eats dog world, right? It's like there's not enough pie for everybody. Like, all of that is scarcity. Thinking I'm not good enough, thinking who am I to show up and write a book or talk on stages, right? Who am I to tell my story? That's scarcity. And when you're at the root of you is scarcity, that's where your outcomes are going to fall too, because you're always holding it because you're scared you're going to lose it, right?
What's the opposite of scarcity mindset?
I'd say abundance mindset, growth mindset. But to me, it's visionary mindset. That's the opposite. The opposite is the raft builders who are so hyper focused on, I'm going to build something positive out of this situation. I'm going to relentlessly focus on that so much that you guys will go, how the heck did she build out of that little crumb? Well, all I looked for was the crumb when you were looking at the big picture, and I built something with it. And that's, opportunity, abundance, leadership. Yeah.
We're chatting tonight with Kathleen Black. Quite an inspirational conversation about some of her journey in life and what the lessons are that she's learned from them. Willpower, vision, self-governance, self-creating, not having a scarcity mindset, but having a abundance mindset. Sounds fantastic. We're going to take a break for some messages and come back with Kathleen for some concluding comments. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. We're chatting tonight with Kathleen Black. She runs a consulting company, Kathleen Black Consulting, and it consults with primarily, I think, real estate practitioners that she advises people to work on teams. And we're going to have to ask you a little bit more about teams at some point in time, Kathleen. But she's also just written her second book and released it. It's called Relentless to Rise, Powering Your Life from the Inside Out. And she talks about her journey and stories. And one of the journeys that you took that I was fascinated with is this trek across northern Spain, the Camino. Mm-hmm. Why did you do it? And what did you learn from it?
Well, I think I've wanted to do it for a long time, and I've been called to do it. And I think this year I was meant to do it for a lot of reasons. Like, we did it as a community awareness pursuit as well. Relentless to Rise was the name of that. We raised money for Free from Fear is what I called it, awareness that even though we're in lockdowns, a lot of people were not sheltering safe at home. And, there's more people trying to go to shelters and turned away, and shelters could take less people because of COVID. So long story short, we did want to raise money and awareness for that, which we did. We gave over $22,000 this last week to Denise House in Oshawa. So we're very grateful to do that. But I also did it because I wanted to align myself on a path that for thousands of years, thousands and thousands of people have done this pilgrimage. They've walked this path, and you go to the path and you start to learn of the history of it, like regardless of your, belief, spirituality, religious here nor there. Like it's fascinating that even before Christianity, people were walking this path and they believed in these energy spots and these temples, but they were like frequency. And I think one of the big things, I try to do with peak performance or helping people perform is learn how to set your frequency. And it's a really cool thing that, when we start to be sensitive to our other senses, we can start to realize that when we raise our frequency, we see different futures for ourselves. We see different capabilities. And when we keep our frequency, our energy high, we experience the world differently. We talk differently. We act differently. Our body language is different. And I always say you set your best goals when your frequency is high. And then it's like, how do you maintain it? So for me, the Camino.
Hold on a second. Yeah. What do you mean frequency high? How do you get your frequency high?
Well, you can do it lots of ways. You can do it in meditation. You can do it in reading. You can do it in being around inspiring people or thought-provoking. You can do it with physical exercise. Like for me, yoga is huge because it's a moving meditation and I'm an active person. So I have a hard time sometimes with like full silent meditation. I do guided meditation, but the frequency is your ability to go inside and kind of go to a more powerful, line clear state. And that's why I keep saying you have to know who you are. You have to know what you believe in. You have to cut all that other noise so you can put everything towards, where am I trying to go and why? And to me, every single day I ask, like lots of people, how can I be of service? I believe I'm directed, show me how I can help, because I believe I need to be aligned for myself, not just religion, spiritually, like with faith of being of service in the world. So frequency is your energetics, right? As a person. And if you power a person's energetics up, like watch out if they know who they are and what they want to accomplish, because they will part seas, so to speak, because they'll be that if they're so hyper focused, like I said, on that crumb, and everyone else is like, show me a sign, where is it? And they're like, oh no, like I have my vision, I'm going for that. That's a powerful person. Like they're putting all their ergs in that one place.
So on the Camino, you found this energy and you found a connectedness.
I found a major connectedness. And I think for me, it was just a reminder of how important it is, to go inside and connect to these energy sources. And that to me, you can go to a temple that was built to represent energy that others connected to, or you can find it in yourself and honor it, and then also visit those places, obviously. But I think that's a really inspiring, powerful thing that we all can experience. I truly believe that it just takes practice and a little bit of patience, dedication.
Kathleen, what a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your journey with us and the lessons of your life that are reflected in your book. If people want to grab your book or get it electronically, how do they do that?
Yeah, right now it is on Amazon internationally. You can just search Relentless to Rise, Kathleen Black, and it'll come up for the ebook within a week, which depending on when this goes out, it'll also be on our website, which is kathleenspeaks.com with an S, kathleenspeaks.com. You get a free ebook there.
And if people want to hire you for your coaching or check out some of your sessions, how do they do that?
Yeah, same thing. You can go on our website, and we do strategy calls for free all the time. We would love to connect with you, and it's pretty high value. And all of our events go on our website. But really, social media, we put absolutely everything we do. So if you want to know if I'm doing a free talk, check out Instagram or Facebook. We'll definitely post it. You can join us there. We'd love that.
Kathleen Black, just chatting with you tonight has lifted my energy. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. That's our show for tonight. Thank you for joining us, everybody. I'm on every Monday through Friday at 7:00 on 960 AM or online at www.saga960am.ca, or on my podcasts and videocasts are on briancrombie.com, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. Thanks so much for joining us. Good night.